So as we begin our integrated project, we're going to create an Illustrator file of the country you chose in your other classes for the integrated project. I need you to make this folder inside of your Vector Graphics project folder because we're still going to be working in Illustrator. So I'm going to Control-C copy and then go to my Vector Graphics project folder and make a new folder with that exact name. I don't like seeing other names because I want to be able to search by this date code or integrated and be able to find what I need to in your project. So this folder is empty right now. First thing we need is a map to go by. So I'm going to go over here to the Google image search and I'm going to put in my country. And I do need to add the word map to it or I'll get all sorts of things about Honduras. I'm going to go to my settings and I want to make sure that I'm looking for images. Yes. Where's my advanced search settings? Here we go. And we don't need a super high resolution, but we do want it to be larger than 1024 by 768. That's going to give us enough detail. And if it's larger, that's great, but that's kind of a minimum at this point. We also can say, well, we want full color ones, but don't really have to make many changes unless we run into problems. We're going to leave the file type set to any format. If you do end up with a PNG or a GIF that is the best one, then we can open it in Photoshop, save as a JPEG, and then we'll be able to put the URL in the comments field. I'm going to do an advanced search, and I'm going to show you what makes for a good map. So this is not a great map because the borders are very thin along in there. It could be used, but let's find a better one. This one doesn't have much in the way of detail. The rivers and the lakes aren't shown on there, but this one almost has too much detail. We don't need to do the individual, let's call them states, inside of the country. So let's find another one. This one actually looks pretty good. I'm going to click on it and make sure I can view image. And I can see that, yes, the rivers are shown on there. The border is clearly defined. We can see who the neighbors are, and there's a lake right there that we could also do. The only drawback to this one is that this terrain, these different colors, could make it a little bit tricky. But let's go ahead and right-click and copy image address, and right-click and save image as. Notice this is a GIF, so I am going to need to change it. But I'm going to save this as Honduras map. That's the name of it. And so I'm going to go and show it in that folder. And I need to change it to a JPEG so I can save the URL. So I'm going to say open with Photoshop. If I don't see Photoshop here, I can say choose another app. And then maybe have to go to more apps and keep looking until Photoshop shows up. Now with GIFs especially, if we turn around and try and do a file save as, the color mode on this may not give us the JPEG that we're after. Image mode needs to be changed from the index color to RGB. You should always check this. If it says CMYK, that's also a bit of a problem for us. So we always want to use RGB color since we always have the idea in mind that we could make a movie out of this, a video. Now that that's been changed, I can say File, Save As, change it to a JPEG, and save it again. Now we've got two of them that look similar, but when I open this up and I look at the details, right over here, the View Details pane is open, so I can get into the comments field. Let me go get that URL one more time and go add it right there. So now that will help me keep track of where that picture came from. Another thing that's very useful to do is see if there's a larger high resolution version of that. If you have a very small picture and you'd like to have a bigger one, you can use the Google image search right here. And you can even just paste the URL and do a search by that. Then look for large, and you may be able to upgrade your image to something even bigger. In this case, I believe it's the same size. Now we need to put this image into Illustrator so that we can trace it. Let me go ahead and start Illustrator. This will be the only time for this project that you do this. From then on, you will go to your project folder, double click on the AI file so that you can continue working on it. We need to create a blank document here, File, New, and it should still be set to 1920 by 1080 pixels. I think that's going to work well for us, and it's already the size for an HD video should we decide to do that. So put in the date that you are creating this, and then integrated project and the name of your country. You also want to check this color mode here. If this isn't visible, you can just look at this. If that says anything but RGB, you can switch to RGB very easily. So now we have our blank document. We have layer 1 here, and now we want to place that image onto that layer. So instead of importing, we're actually going to look for place. And it'll ask us which one we want to place. And there it is. Now, it starts out with click and drag where you want it to appear. So I'm going to go to the upper left-hand corner and go down as far as I can here. And now you can see that this has been put on my artboard. And you can move it so that the tips of the country do not go over. It looks to me like this is down too far. And if I go up any further, then these islands are going to be cut off. So I actually need to make it a little bit smaller. Now you don't just click and drag the corner, or you may distort the shape of the country, which would be pretty much a disaster. So hold down Shift, grab a corner, and shrink it down a little bit. And now we'll be ready to trace it. Now the opacity here is set to 100%. So if we're going to trace, it should actually be a little bit more transparent. Let me go ahead and make that change. First, I'm going to call this my original map layer. Then I'm going to select everything on it and reduce the opacity so it'll be better for tracing. You have to find a good number that's going to work for you. 25 seems like a pretty good balance. You have to be able to see the details on the border in order to trace. So once you have that done, you're ready to go. So let me use my grabby hand, place it right there, and in the next step, I will show you how to do your tracing. Make sure it's saved first.